insurance industry is feeling the pinch of the blackouts as claims related to damage to electronic items rise. Some companies have informed clients that they will soon not be covering any losses caused by the collapse of the national grid. So to discuss this even further, we're now joined by short-term insurance Senior Assistant Ombudsman Peter Nkuna this morning. And Peter, thank you so much for your time. Good morning to you. Let's talk about, I suppose, the impact of these blackouts on insurance companies specifically. I suppose that obviously led to this decision, but what's been the impact so far on insurance companies?
Good morning to Melo and good morning to the viewers. I think if we start off by pointing out that insurance is a matter of risk, meaning that for all insurance companies, they would weigh up the risk and decide this is a risk we are willing to undertake or underwrite, and then agree with the insured person to say we will provide you this or that cover. Now, with the load shedding and power outages in general, which tend to also be related to load shedding, what tends to happen is that greater losses are being suffered by insurers, and this has an impact also on their reinsurability. So in other words, some of the risk that is assumed by insurance companies is also passed through or passed on to reinsurers, and reinsurers are also becoming concerned and sometimes even saying we will no longer be willing to provide cover for the insurance companies. So without the backup from the reinsurance companies, insurers are also feeling a bit too exposed, and that is one of the problems. And the other thing to also remember is that insurance is about the probability of things happening. Now, with what we have been experiencing over time, one can certainly expect that at some point or other, there's going to be a loss that one suffers as a result of load shedding or power outages, and the magnitude of these losses is what is resulting in this development.
So it resulted in, an exclusionary clause. Pardon me. Exclusionary clauses exempting insurers from paying out claims arising from an electricity grid failure. We spoke about the impact of, obviously the blackouts on insurance companies. What does this then mean for, insurance clients and customers, particularly depending on insurance companies to give them some relief, because they too did not obviously call for blackouts or, all these load shedding incidents that we're seeing. So it means that are they now left out in the cold with no assistance whatsoever from insurance companies?
There are two main things that would flow from this. One is that because of the reluctance to provide cover, you would find that some insurers do not provide cover at all. And then you would also find that others, while providing the cover, it may be a little bit more expensive or much more expensive. And therefore, either way, some of people who would like to enjoy the cover may not necessarily be able to afford it, or even where they may be able to afford it, there could possibly not be any insurer that is willing to carry the particular risk, and that is what we are faced with. Unfortunately, because this is a contractual matter, you can't force an insurance company to say, you must underwrite this risk, even though its own assessment of that risk says to it, it's an unworthy risk to underwrite, and one that is not going to be for the benefit of the majority of policyholders ultimately.
Yeah. Peter, understandably, this power crisis, if I may just add, it made for a difficult insurance market. One would understand that. So what do the stats say specifically, particularly when it comes to the rise in claims, since we've seen the different stages from stage 4, stage 5, load shedding? What's the stats telling us in terms of those claims and the increase that insurance companies have seen?
Our statistics will not necessarily present an accurate picture, because remember, our statistics would only be in relation to complaints that are received by our office. And that is not necessarily a true reflection of what is going on out there. The better statistics may be obtainable from the South African Insurance Association. From our perspective, all we can say is, yes, there has been an uptick, and this has been long time coming. Ever since we've had incidences of load shedding, it has been rising, the incidence of complaints in relation to power outages. And in fact, a lot of times it's not so much what is called power outage, but power surge that we would be discussing in our context.
I want to also, just in closing, perhaps touch on, the insurance market. In your view, how's it looking with the energy crisis? Obviously, the president, as well as the Minister of Energy, promising that there will be some relief. A resolution is in sight. So we're still awaiting to hear what that looks like or what the timelines look like. But in your view, in the meantime, in the interim, how is the insurance market looking? What's its prospects? What's its future looking like?
Look, I think it's challenging times for everyone. One of the other dimensions that has also been plaguing the industry is changes in weather patterns. So you've got that, which has also resulted in reinsurers expressing concerns. You now have I think there's also an increase in uprisings, political and whatever protest action that we see, and the resultant damage. You now also have power outages as a result of load shedding and related matters. All of these things have implications on the insurability of the risks that we face. And the greater the risk, the more likely it is that insurers may not be willing to provide the cover that we need. And that could lead us exposed. And as you listen, recently we've also been hearing from the agricultural sector and the logistics sector indicating how they are also struggling. And all of these things are part of what our insurance lives would be involved in, and our lives in general are impacted by these things.
All right, we'll leave it then. I appreciate you speaking to me about this, Peter. Short-term insurance senior assistant ombudsman, Peter Nkuna, thank you so much for your time this morning.